Hey everyone, it's Lindsay and I'm back today with a video tutorial on making a photo card. Now, if you like to send Christmas cards with your photo in them, this is a great way to do it. So I've got an A2 card base. I've also got a sheet of this acetate cut down to 4¼ by 5½ inches. And this I got at Hobby Lobby. I got this specific kind because I like to use digital stamps as well, and it can be run through my printer later on. I've also cut down a 4x6 photo to an A2 size, so it's 4¼ by 5½. Now with my card base, I'm going to chop off the front part. You can do this with the straight edge if you want to. I'm going to use a scallop die. You can use whatever die kind of suits your card theme that you want to go with. So I'm just lining that up straight across the top. I want to make sure it's nice and centered. So I've got an even number of scallops on both the left and right side. And I'm leaving about a 1/2 inch on the top of this. So I've got a 1/2 inch flap. And now you can see I have no card front now. It's just this little bitty flap on the top and the inside of the card. On that top flap, I want to stamp out this Noel sentiment all the way across. And it is a little scripty, so it has a tail on the front and on the end, so I can kind of connect them a little bit. I'll be doing all of my stamping today with Versamark ink, and I will be heat embossing all of my images with silver ink. Also, for all of my stamping, I will be using the Inspired by Stamping stamp set, and it is called Snowflake Wonder. This is one of their new releases. One of their new November releases. And so I did this card. It is the same exact design. There are a few elements that are a little bit different, but I did it to where I didn't add a photo in. I just had a vellum cover on the front. Now you could do that, but if you're like me and you want to send photos with your Christmas cards, this is the way I came up to do it this year. So I am just heat setting all of those Noels that I stamped across the top, and you can see that little tail on the front and the end connect there, so it makes a nice little, it goes across the top very well. So I wanted to do my sentiment in the bottom right hand corner, but I didn't want to cover up any special parts of the photo. So I'm laying that acetate right over the top of that photo. You can't see that it's on there, but I promise it is. And then I just laid my stamp over the top of that so I could position it and know exactly where I wanted to stamp this. I am going to be using my embossing bag, and I would highly, highly, highly suggest using it on any sort of plastic sheeting that you may be using. Plastic sheeting has a tendency to hold the static, so you're going to get a lot of stray embossing powders if you don't use that, especially from fingerprints and things like that. So I would really suggest it with this. Now I did sprinkle on some silver embossing powder, and then I'm using my heat gun. You really want to let it heat up before you bring it on, and then I'm hitting it from the back a little bit, and then I'll turn it and hit it from the front, and then from the back again, and then from the front, just so I don't accidentally melt this. I don't want to put too much heat on it and then accidentally melt it down. So now I'm going to be stamping all of these different snowflakes that come in the stamp set all over the front of this card to create kind of a snowflake flurry. So I really doused this plastic sheeting with my embossing bag. You can see it is completely covered with white powder, but that's okay because once I'm done, I can wipe this down with a damp baby wipe and it will all be gone. So I am just randomly stamping these different snowflakes out. You can see I have 3 big ones and 2 smaller ones that come in the stamp set. And I will randomly stamp these around. For these, I'm not going to worry so much about if they cover the face. That doesn't matter. I just didn't want those words to be covering any important parts because they're more solid. So I'm switching up these snowflakes now. You can see I'm stamping a few here, a few there, and I'm starting with my larger ones to fill in the majority of the space on what will be the card front. And then I will come back in with all of these little spaces in between the larger ones, and I will fill those in with the 2 smaller snowflakes. Now this would be a really great card to use StazOn ink on. White StazOn ink would be gorgeous, but I wanted to go ahead and heat set these. But that's another idea too. If you don't feel like heat embossing all of your Christmas cards, stays on ink would work really well for this technique as well. And there is silver stays on ink, so that's a thought too. So I'm sprinkling my silver embossing powder on, and I'm using this over a coffee filter just because it's easier with this plastic sheeting. It wants to stick in certain places, so I am flicking pretty hard to get all the excess off of this. And when I put it on, it made me a little nervous because it didn't look like anything was sticking. You can't really see the embossing powder once it's on there. So I was a little nervous. But then once I heat set it, it turned completely silver and it was fine. So if that happens to you, don't be scared. It is sticking. I thought it wasn't at first either. But you just need to heat set it and it'll show up nice and bright. So I'm bringing back in my heat gun now. And as I melt these, I'm kind of bringing it to, then pulling it away for a few seconds, letting the paper cool off, then bringing it back. Again, you really don't want to burn this. And if you put too much heat on plastic, of course it's going to warp, of course it's going to melt. So just be a little extra careful when you're heat embossing. Now you can see I'm not bringing a totally soaking wet baby wipe. This is just a damp baby wipe that I've had laying out for a few minutes. And I just rubbed off all of that extra embossing powder. Now I've got this gorgeous clear front to my card with all of these silver snowflakes on it. And my sentiment is down in the bottom as well. So I put some double-sided adhesive on the top of that flap on the back of it. And now I'm just removing that backing paper. I didn't burnish this down. I didn't want to mess up any of my embossing on the front. So if you do want to burnish it down to make removing that backing paper, just do it before you emboss. Now I will lay that silver acetate piece right in front of the card and line it up with the back of the card. So it looks like it's all one piece. Then I can just fold down that flap, press firmly, and now I've got a complete A2 size card ready to go. Now on the inside of my card, I am just going to attach my picture. There will be no stamping. My sentiments on the front. You can always sign your name on the bottom of the picture or put a piece of cardstock along the bottom if you wanted to. But I would suggest using removable adhesive here. So then if your recipient wants to toss out your card once Christmas is over, they can remove that picture and keep it. That's just another thought as well. I don't mind when people throw my cards away. It doesn't bother me. So if you're like me, I would just put this picture in with some removable adhesive. So I adhered that down, and now I have this gorgeous photo card all ready to go. And you can see, I will stand it up here to show you that it does stand. Even though that plastic is just a little flimsy, it will actually stand up and it presents very nicely. You just want to make sure that you have that top crease really creased down well. And that finishes off today's card. I hope you guys enjoyed this. And I hope I've given you some ideas on making your own photo card for this Christmas season. As always, I will leave you with just a few pictures. For more information and the supply list, you can head to my blog, craftingwhilecaffeinated.wordpress.com. The link is in the description box below. Thank you guys for watching today, and happy crafting!